The slap heard round the world. I think we need to have a talk. Hello, everybody. Hello, Rabbi Litwak.
Hello, Rabbi David.
How are things going?
They are going good.
Good.
Going well.
We're both exhausted and not from getting ready for Pesach, which is a problem. That's a problem that that our exhaustion is not coming from, oh yeah, I have to clean. Oh yeah, I have to cook. I have to. Are you hosting a lot of people, by the way?
We are hosting 13. No,
that's
13.
That's a lot.
16. 16? I forget. I don't remember. Oh.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
No. So I put in a call to hello, Sage. Sage is watching. How you doing, Sage? Let me pop her comment up here. How do I put you in there, Sage? There you go. Hey, Sage.
All right.
Respite with you two. Yes, we're looking.
We're glad that you're with us.
We're glad that you're with us. So listen, I put a call in to Will and Chris's agents.
Excellent.
And because we both agreed that we really need to sit down and talk with them. Not so much you and me, but our sages. And because there's just there was some crazy stuff that was going on a couple weeks ago, and we need to address it. So I'm happy to say that they both agreed, and they're both here to join us. Please welcome Chris Rock, Will Smith. It's really wonderful to have both of you with us.
Gentlemen, nice to have you.
Nice to have you. I'm going to ask you both to stay on mute for most of our conversation today, just so we don't get that echo feedback loop. So we'll come back to you in just a moment. But of course, I mean, everyone knows what we're talking about today. But the bigger, I think for us, the bigger question or the bigger discussion is not about these two individuals, but really about how Jewish tradition teaches us to treat one another. And I think we need to look at both sides of the coin here, because our sages have something to say to each of these guys.
For sure. Yeah, I think, it's not what happened. We're very clear about what happened. It's what's the meaning of what happened, and how do we find meaning in that? And remarkably, but not surprisingly, our tradition tells us quite a bit. So let's dive in.
Let's do it. All right. So we're going to start with oh, sorry. You disappear. I'm going to bring you back. So we're going to start with, we're going to approach this in again, from the question about how we speak to one another and then how we react to being spoken to. So I wanted to share a couple of texts with you. And this is sort of an amazing story here.
It's so amazing, some of these texts, at how prescient they are, and how timeless that they are.
Absolutely. So this is a story about Elisha. Elisha was Elijah's understudy. Is that how you would describe him, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So we're going to start actually at verse 23 here. It says, Vayal Misham Beit El. So Elisha went up from where he was, and he went to a place called Bethel. As he was going up the road, some little boys came out of the town and jeered at him, saying, "Go away, bald head! Go away, bald head!" That hurts. As someone who's thinning, that hurts. He turned around and looked at them and cursed them in the name of the Lord. Thereupon 2 she-bears came out of the woods and mangled 42 of the children. He wandered from there to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria. Now, I just want to bring, before we even discuss this, I want to bring one other text, and I'm going to actually jump down here. Where is it? It's right after this one. Here we go. From Sota, where the sages say that Elisha fell ill 3 times. One of those times was a punishment for inciting the bears to attack the children. So let's just start with the children and how they behave. Now, these are children, so there's probably a different discussion when it comes to children. But I mean,
but we can make a parallel to All right, children do what children do, right? And we could make a parallel statement of comedians do what comedians do. They make fun.
Okay, that's interesting. That's not what I was thinking at all, but that's a really, really interesting point. So what I was thinking is, how do we make a correlation, or how do we make a connection rather, between this text which talks about children and in this case where we're talking about adults? But you're right. And other comedians who've come to Chris's defense have said this is what comedians do.
Right, right.
They make
There's no
fun of people.
question. I mean, and Chris Rock, he like his rabbis were people like Lenny Bruce and Don Rickles and Joan Rivers, all of whom we might be able to argue were far worse than he was in terms of what he was saying. Right.
And so the question, I think, then is, does the fact that children do what children do and that comedians do what comedians do, does that negate the pain? I guess. I mean, I imagine Alicia was feeling pain because he
Right.
unleashed the bears on the kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Is this is what they do a valid excuse to do that?
No, it's never. All right. And there's where we have to land on Will Smith's reaction. All right. Understanding that well, this is what they do. Okay. Doesn't excuse it. Okay. But it requires us to be understanding. Okay, and then react appropriately.
Right.
Okay. He could have, as plenty of people have opined over the last few weeks, he could have gone up. He could have taken the microphone. He could have given an impassioned statement about the challenges of alopecia, the disease that his wife deals with. He could have, with great class, gone up there and taught the Torah of his heart. That this is something that is painful. We don't realize it. And he would have brought the Academy to its feet. Right? He would have gotten the Academy Award for best moral performance in the midst of a tricky moment.
He would have won 2 that night. Yeah.
Right.
I do think, though, that there's a tendency to, when discussing this issue, to say, if Chris was justified in his actions, then that means that Will was unjustified. If Will was justified in his actions, that means that Chris was not justified in his. And I want to separate them, because to me, I think that we can judge each of them separately. And I just want to push back a little bit, because saying that Will Smith should have done X when he heard this joke one argument against that could be the whole idea of busha, of causing embarrassment, and that in Jewish tradition, when the blood drains, when a person's face turns white from embarrassment, when the blood drains, the rabbis imagine that as if the person was bleeding out.
Right.
Right. It's your right. It's like you're literally stabbing yourself. So could Will Smith have gone? Could you have walked up to the stage, right, and handled this better? Yes. That, to me, has nothing to do with the fact that you, Chris, drew blood.
And that's correct. Okay. And there was a whole lot of conversation, all right, Chris, whether you knew about Jada Pinkett Smith's condition.
But Rabbi, does that matter? Does it matter? I mean, right? Lashon hara, and by the way, this discussion isn't really about Lashon hara per se, but Lashon hara, evil tongue, or speaking evil, is even what's true, even saying what's true can be Lashon hara. So even if he knew it, and it's true.
So maybe we need to, okay, Rabbi David, let's put this on the list of things that we need
Yeah.
to discuss. Is what is the role of Jewish humor,
Mm.
okay, or what is the role of humor in Judaism? If we talk about humor being, there's always a kernel of truth to it, and that's
Right.
what makes it funny. Okay, it pokes at us. Is there any place for humor within this Jewish idea that if you cause somebody busha, embarrassment, that you are in effect threatening their life, right? And if not, man, we've got a huge historical issue
Mm-hmm.
because humor has been such a part of Judaism for not the last 100 years, but for 1,000 years.
Right. The challenge, in some ways, the question boils down to me as when is it humorous, right? When it's about someone else, it's humorous. When it's about me or someone I love, not so funny.
Not so funny.
Not so funny. So that's the Chris Rock. I mean, there's more to say about it, but let's jump to the Will Smith piece, because I love Will Smith. I love his movies. I don't know
Yeah.
him as a person, but I look up to him. I think he's funny. I think he's talented. His movies have really, in some ways, touched me, the serious ones. And so here's what I've been struggling with. I'm going to share a text with you, and then I really want to hear what you have to say. So this is from Eruvin. And it's talking about a person's character. And it's asking, how do you know who a person is, right? What a person's character is. And Rabbi Eli says, in three matters, a person's true character is ascertained: in his cup, his behavior when he drinks; in his pocket, his conduct in his financial dealings with other people; and in his anger. And then he concludes, some people also say his real nature in his laughter. So those last two pieces are especially pertinent, right, to this. Maybe we could skip over the drinking and the financial piece, although those certainly, perhaps, I mean, the idea that someone could think that they could get up at the Academy Awards and do this, you have to have a certain amount of influence, power, whatever it is, to think that you could even do that. Or you have to be drunk, I guess. But so I guess my question is it fair for us to look at Will Smith as a completely different person now that we've seen this behavior from him, now that we've seen this anger from him?
I just hate to go down that path because then it feels like there's no redemption.
Right.
Okay? There's no tshuva.
Right.
Okay, he cracked. Okay? And maybe let's assume, in the best of circumstances, that he cracked. Okay, we don't know them, and could it be that he's had a long history of being a mean individual, lashing out, using physical violence? I don't know that, but I want to just stick with the idea that um, uh, he lost control, right? And now, right, he's certainly taking a punishment. We could discuss the whole punishment: resigning from the academy, 10 years not at the Academy Awards. Okay, we could do all of that. We'll see how it affects his movie career. Fine. We could even talk about whether he's done real tshuva, right? But I get concerned that this is what's going to be on his epitaph,
Right.
right? And it's a thing that I worry about all the time. Okay, that in a time when, right, if this had happened 50 years ago or 75 years ago in the earliest Academy Awards, nobody would know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it was broadcast instantaneously in front of, I don't know, make up a number, 200 million people around the world. Okay? that's what he's going to be known for, and that's for me that's sad. It's not excusing the behavior. I just believe that our tradition tells us that we have the opportunity um, for tshuva, particularly in a situation like this. I look at his behavior as the balance between our Yetzer Hatov and Yetzer Hara. Okay? That our good inclination and our evil or bad inclination. Okay? And the Yetzer Hatov is my friend Rabbi Matt Cohen wrote a little piece about this that he shared with me. He was talking about the fact that our Yetzer Hatov is that inner voice that said to Will Smith, "Stay cool, man. Right? Take a deep breath. Reflect on how you are going to respond in this situation. All right, figure out a way in a Musar sense that you're going to add light and wholeness to the world rather than take it down." And then you've got the Yetzer Hara, which got the better of Will in this situation. It's the force that made him clock the guy. Right? He was making fun of his wife, and he got upset. Right? And it's hard to fight those urges.
When you were talking about the Yetzer Hatov and describing what it might say, all I could think of was, oh my goodness, I just blanked on his name. The other actor who said to him about the devil. Come on, I'm blanking.
Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington, right? That his demeanor, to me, that's what it sounded like. The Yetzer Hatov was him kind of saying, "Will, come on now. Right. This is a moment where the devil's going to come for you."
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't want to push.
Well, go ahead.
No, I don't want to push back. I just the idea that, and again, this is an idea that I'm uncomfortable with, but the idea that Will Smith that this should not be written on his epitaph. The whole idea of anger, controlling our anger, being judged by how we control our anger is it feels so prominent to me. And one of the most famous texts, we say it on Rosh Hashanah, we say it on Yom Kippur, I think we say it on both, right? Yeah. Is Adonai Adonai. This is the Lord, God compassionate and gracious, slow to anger. Erech apayim. If we're all in God's image, we have to be able to see ourselves in the image of God, and a piece of that is controlling our anger. And by the way, this isn't, you don't need to walk up on stage at the Academy Awards and slap someone to not be controlling your anger. It happens all the time with me. I mean, someone will say something to me, and I will, I'll have a knee-jerk reaction, an angry knee-jerk reaction, and it's only after this may be just a man thing. I don't know. Sage or someone who's watching can correct me. But I speak before I think. Every day, all the time. Speak before. And what that means is that I do a relatively poor job of controlling my anger sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not slow to anger.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a verse in Proverbs 16:32. Okay,
makes me angry that you can cite sources like that. I'm just saying.
He who is slow to anger is better than a strong man. He who masters his passions is better than one who conquers a city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I like that.
But think about what that takes. What does it mean, to be that strong,
right?
In the heat of the moment.
And here, that's great, right? Because even God Even God isn't that strong. Right? We all remember when Moses came down with the tablets or the what, right? And God was really angry, and God says, "Let me be,
man.
right? That my anger will blaze forth against them, and that I will destroy them." And then it's Moses who has to say to him, who has to say to God, "Wait a second, take a breath. Let's do some deep breathing together, God.
Right.
Don't let your anger blaze forth. You brought them out of Egypt." And I love the rabbis when they're interpreting this particular text. I love what they do. One of the interpretations, one of the Meforshim that I read says that why was Moses arguing that God shouldn't do that God shouldn't kill the people? Because it would reflect poorly on God. It would say to the Egyptians, boy, that right. God, God isn't powerful. God can't even control God's own people. But in truth, at least on a pshat, on a basic level, this is saying to us, even God struggles to control God's anger.
It is really hard. Okay?
Yeah.
If God has trouble with it, and we certainly do.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at like maybe two more texts here.
Sure.
This is from Pirkei Avot. There are 4 kinds of temperaments: easy to become angry and easy to be appeased. And the reward, if you will, for that is that his gain disappears in his loss. Hard to become angry and hard to be appeased. His loss disappears in his gain. Hard to become angry and easy to be appeased. That's a pious person. And easy to become angry and hard to be appeased. That's a wicked person. And when I saw this text, Rabbi, the other day in your office, we were talking about the wicked child. And I immediately thought of that whole discussion and what we were thinking about, who is, really the wicked child. But so the suggestion I think here is that if you want to be pious, be slow to anger, but be quick to satisfaction.
Let go.
To let go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just to play devil's advocate with us again, well, here's what I was going to say. You actually already answered this before. What I was going to say is, while we need to be slow to anger, we also cannot be oblivious to pain that other people are causing. And in this case, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, Chris, but you really blew it. You really blew it. And that's not an excuse. That's not a reason why anyone should have slapped you. I do think it's important that those who cause others pain, whether that's physical or through comedy, even if that's what you do, I think it's really important that they be called out for that. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair statement? Would you agree with that?
I think so. And I think that I haven't heard much from Chris in this. Okay. I don't remember. Did he apologize or in any way acknowledge?
I haven't heard it. The only thing I've heard is he did a show shortly thereafter, and he said, "I'm not going to say much about it." And then I read somewhere where he said he's not going to speak until he gets paid, and I have no idea what that even means. I haven't heard him say anything. But I think that his argument is what you started with. This is what comedians do. I'm not going to apologize for what I do. If this was the first time he ever called someone out, that would be one thing.
Right.
He does it all the time. All right, I got one more for you, Rabbi.
Bring it on.
This I love. This is from Pesachim. It's a story, a teaching from Reish Lakish. He says, any person who becomes angry, God, this is so true. If he's a Torah scholar, his wisdom departs from him. If he's a prophet, his prophecy departs from him. The Gemara explains that if he's a Torah scholar, his wisdom departs from him. It is that teaching, that idea is learned from Moshe, as it's written, and Moses became angry with the officers of the host, the captains over thousands, the captains over hundreds who came from the battle. And what was his punishment? As it's written right afterward, and Eleazar the priest said to the men of war who went to the battle, "This is the statute of the law which the Lord commanded Moses," which proves by inference that this law had become hidden from Moses due to his anger. This is sort of an amazing text, right? So the Reish Lakish says that the proof text for if you become angry, you lose everything. You lose all sense of reason. You lose your Torah, you lose your prophecy. The proof text is that the Torah says that Moshe became angry. Moses got angry. And right after that, what's the Hebrew?
Smichut.
Smichut, thank you. Right after that, Smichut is when the rabbis connect two texts that are next to each other. It says Elazar was teaching them about the statute of the law. Well, the question is, why didn't Moses teach them about that? Moses, the head honcho. And the answer was because Moses couldn't. He forgot it because he was angry. His anger led to him not even being able to fulfill his role as prophet or as teacher or as rabbi. I know that for me, that is absolutely true. I lose all sense of reason when I get angry. And maybe that's, what happened with Will. Maybe it was that anger just took him over. When you talked about the Yitzhar Tov and Yitzhar Ra before, that also, this idea that we have both of these within us and we're constantly battling so that the Yitzhar Hara doesn't take over, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just compassionate to both of those individuals, without excusing their behavior. It just feels understandable. I'm sorry that it blew up in the way that it did. If they had seen each other on the street, okay, and that had happened and nobody knew about it, okay, they would have dealt with it. The act would have been exactly the same, but now it's just it's consumed and hopefully it's something that will go away.
I do think, by the way, that Chris Rock deserves a tremendous amount of credit for how he responded, or for how he didn't respond, I should say.
Right.
Right. That it didn't become a brawl on stage. That he just stood there. He took it and he just that was.
I think he was so stunned.
I think so. Also, yeah. But I just want to say that what you just said, boy, that's really hard. To be compassionate toward both parties and yet not have that excuse their actions. I find that to be that's a very nuanced place to be that I think a lot of us struggle to be in.
Thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment. Yeah. I think that we're all in that place. We all find ourselves in that spot between just going off, right, and staying in control and being the bigger person. And if we acknowledge that that's something that is a reality among every human being, then why shouldn't we be compassionate when somebody else it gets into that situation and makes the wrong choice?
Absolutely. So that wrong choice, Sage actually is bringing up a really interesting point with that, and that this is a good lesson for our kids, right? That this is, as you said before, this is going to stay with him. You can be judged by what you post, what you do on social media, and boy, can that end up hurting you.
I gave a sermon and now a number of years ago during the High Holy Days about not forgetting. Okay? That we're in a society that does not forget, and we need to be able to forget. Okay? Not right now. Okay, I think this is too raw. This is too. Right? There's plenty of lessons to learn, right? But right, I don't want this hanging over either one of them for the rest of their lives. It was a split second. It was a moment. Okay? It was a minute in the history of these two individuals.
Yeah. Beautifully said.
All right. So,
Rabbi, I hope you have the most lovely, lovely Pesach.
thank you, and to you too, and to all of our listeners, that this is a season of freedom, and that is not just physical freedom, but freedom from all of the things that hold us down, shackle us, and at least in this case, our emotions.
Yeah.
Okay? That can we free ourselves from those things that we get stuck with?
Amen. Amen.
Happy Pesach, everybody.
Happy Pesach,
We'll see
everyone.
you in 2 weeks.
Good seeing you all. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.